Hey, Harpslingers, welcome to the Harpslinger Podcast, where each and every week we get to hang out with the greatest harmonica players in the music business. Listen up. My next guest is a true blues harmonica master, an educator, humanitarian, and multi-award-winning artist. He's been nominated for 3 Grammy Awards, won 2 WC Handy Awards, an Emmy, and the list of honors goes on and on. NPR calls him one of the greatest harmonica players to ever play the blues. It's my honor, everybody, to welcome the one and only Mr. Billy Branch. Billy Branch, welcome to the Harpslinger Podcast. How you feeling?
Thank you. Fine. And yourself?
I'm doing good, man. So, I started, Billy, asking you, when was that moment for you when you originally, you found the first harmonica somehow and it came into your life? What was that moment? And what did that mean to you at the moment?
Well, that was just a fateful, seemingly by chance, walked into a Woolworth's 5 and dime store and saw a shiny harmonica in a display case. And prior to that, I'd never seen or heard anyone play harmonica in person, but something told me that I could play it. And I asked the clerk how much it was. It was $1, and I had $1. And as soon as I put it into my mouth, I could play practically any folk melody or Christmas carol I could think of.
Right. Great.
Yeah.
Right. So you were playing, I guess then, and to play those kind of things, you were playing a lot of first position stuff.
Yeah. I had absolutely no knowledge blues whatsoever.
Whatsoever. That's wild. So this was in California and
that was in Los Angeles.
Yes. Los Angeles. Okay. But you were originally from Chicago, and then you went back to Chicago to attend the University of Illinois in Chicago, and you had a fateful sort of encounter in Grant Park with the legendary Willie Dixon. That must have been a huge moment for you, maybe a turning point in your life. Actually, I mean, you wanted to be an attorney. You were studying political science, and all of a sudden you're like, no, I'm a blues man. I got to play the blues.
Well, you make it sound so simple the way you condense it. I didn't think of it as simple. It wasn't in those terms, but essentially, yeah, that's the way it turned out. I went to that festival, which was possibly the greatest festival ever produced. Muddy Waters, Big Mama Thornton, Betty Everett, Bo Diddley, Buddy Guy, Junior Wells, Big Walter Horton, Sonny Land Slim, about 40 legendary names, and it was backed by Willie Dixon, Chicago Blues All-Stars, and Willie produced it. And I didn't know. The only reason I can tell you who was there now is because the writer for the Sun-Times wrote a blues column, Jeff Johnson. He and I met, and he was at that festival as well. So he wrote an article describing the festival, an article about the festival, and highlighting this was Billy Branch's first time ever hearing the blues. And so when he wrote the article, I figured I found out who I listened to, because I swear I couldn't have told you one person.
Right.
And the greatest irony is that 7 years later, I found myself being Willie Dixon's harmonica player.
That's an amazing story actually to begin with. But what happens to you in the interim, in that 7 years between being exposed to the blues in a way you'd never thought possible, I guess, and then all of a sudden you're on stage with, Willie Dixon is to say legendary is probably an understatement. So
yeah.
So how did that, what transpired in that time period?
Well, Chicago was just saturated with blues clubs, blues musicians, and typically on college campus you find fledgling musicians, guitarists and harmonica players, and so I'd meet people. We'd have jam sessions on campus, and then I had a good buddy of mine that took me down to Teresa's, which was Junior Wells' home base. It was a legendary nightclub. Even people like Little Walter and Sonny Boy Williamson had passed through there. Everybody did. Little small nightclub in the hood, in the basement. And I met Junior Wells.
Wow.
And that was the beginning of my forays into the blues clubs. But there was probably maybe 30 or more blues clubs active on the south and west sides, which were predominantly the black neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And, one thing led to another. You meet, and then it was like I was just almost a junkie. I had to have it. I was going to college by day and blues clubs at night, and looking back, some of my college friends, they tease me because I'm still in touch with some of them. They said, man, we'd be riding down the street in the car, hear some blues, and you'd make us stop the car and you'd jump out and run into the club.
Yeah.
And they said, and of course, we'd have to go in and follow you, make sure you were all right. But I had no apprehension about going anywhere, even on my own, even at night, even to some neighborhoods that were, deemed not the safest places. I just went, and fortunately, I never had any problems or any dangerous episodes in visiting.
Right.
But eventually I found myself having nerve enough to get on stage, and one thing led to another. You know how that goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I've heard a lot of guys, a lot of harp players talk about how welcoming and open these Chicago players were to up and coming. And I don't know if you sort of laugh. I'm not sure maybe that's not exactly the case, but I have heard you. Okay, so I'm cutting a little ahead. I have a bit of a script here that I always try to have some things that I want to talk about, and one of those things is
sure.
is a record called Harp Attack. Now that was lower in my list. I was going to talk about that later, but it's one of my favorite records. And there's, for obvious reasons, I think any harp player would say that's right at the top of the heap. And so one of my favorite track on there, I think, is New Kid on the Block. And I think that must tell like a pretty, it's got to be autobiographical. You wrote the song, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So, these guys sound, they're talking to you during the song as you talk to them. And you can hear the love between you. And so the relationships that you built with these guys was profound. But also it's, you must have, did they show you some ropes coming up? Was there?
Well, that song is biographical, and everything I said in there was true. Mm-hmm. And there's a line, Big Walter Carrie Bell and June used to cut my head. I took a lot of cuttings, but I sure ain't dead, right?
Right.
I had to blow, oh Lord, I couldn't stop when I was young blood, the new kid on the block. The way they showed me was by kicking my butt.
Okay.
It wasn't like, I could tell you another story. When I first met Junior Wells, if looks could kill, I would have been dead on the spot. It wasn't quite like that. It was like, number one, I didn't look like, I guess, what a blues man was supposed to look like. Back then in college, I had about a 12-inch afro.
Okay.
You know, I was pretty clean cut, and I just, you know, I didn't conform to the, I guess, what you call the typical blues man image. But in general, and don't get me wrong, in general, everybody was really receptive and warm. In my case, and a lot of people would say, you had to kind of prove yourself. Number one, show that you were serious. And then you had to show that you're improving and that you're worthy of being up there. And I got my ass kicked so many times.
Right.
You know, a lot of people might have said, forget it, because they didn't show me any mercy. It wasn't like, oh, come on over here, little fella.
Yeah.
Let's show you. No, it was like, we're going to kick you. Look, I'll put it like this. In Junior Wells' documentary on his life, he's asked the question, my name comes up, and they said, what about Billy Branch? And Junior's response was, we used to make Billy Branch eat that harmonica.
Okay.
So it was the school of hard knocks, and I experienced that with Big Walter Horton, James Cotton, Carrie Bell, and Junior Wells firsthand for many years. But I was determined. I was persistent. There was something in me that craved this this skill, if you will. I had to have it. And since you brought up Harp Attack, the ultimate honor for me was what Bruce Eaglauer, owner and president of Alligator Records, has told me on several occasions, is that when he assembled Carrie, Junior, and James Cotton for the recording, he told them we needed a fourth harmonica player. And he said they unanimously said, get Billy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably the coolest thing ever, actually.
Yeah. That was, because I really wasn't aware of that until he told me some time ago, but I wasn't aware that that's how that happened.
Incredible honor. So, okay. So you're out, you're sitting in, you're doing you mentioned cutting heads. You just mentioned that. Can you, I mean, I have a pretty good idea what cutting heads is. For those that don't really know, can you kind of give us set the scene here? What would happen?
What would happen was be like, okay, we're say at Teresa's, or we're down at Buddy Guy's club, the Checkerboard at the time. And just say James Cotton's on stage. And he gets up there and he blows. And he's, of course, Cotton was consummate professional. And of course, he's going to get the house, and then maybe they'll call me up. And I get up there and I do a pretty good job. And Cotton's looking at, wait a minute, this young kid looked like he's trying to cut my head. So Cotton will get back up there.
I love it.
And that happened more times than I can remember. Yeah.
it's such it's sort of it was very competitive. You know, you guys were, you know,
very competitive, but not.
I said just friendly, but competitive. Like, hey, man.
Friendly, but competitive. It was competitive, but not hostile.
Mm-hmm.
It was friendly, competitive.
Right on.
It wasn't hostile, but it was like, you ain't gonna outdo me.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. So, at what point did Willie Dixon enter the picture for you?
That was probably around. Good question. Maybe 74, 75.
Okay.
Somewhere around there. Because a young lady that worked in one of the offices on campus at the university happened to do some secretarial work for Willie Dixon. And I found out, and I bugged her to, you know, hey, you got to hook me up. You got to hook, you know, by this time, of course, I know who the players are. And she finally, she got so tired of me bugging her, said, here's his number. You call him yourself. And I did. And he invited me down to his his studio, you know.
Wow.
And he heard me play and saw potential. And initially, when he knew Carrie Bell was going to, you know, I replaced Carrie Bell. He knew Carrie was going to leave. So he brought me in while Carrie was still in the band. And I actually toured with them as an apprentice harmonica player.
Wow. Wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
That is super cool.
Yeah, it was cool. But looking back, it was kind of weird because, you know, me and Freddie Dixon, who was the original bass player of the Sons of Blues, we'd be, you know, say, hey, show Billy some stuff. And I'm thinking about, why would he want to show the guy that's going to take his gig some stuff, you know?
Right.
But me and Carrie were real cool. I spent probably more one-on-one time with Carrie than the other guy, Junior Cotton and Big Walter, because his son Lurie, of course, was the original Dixon Sons of Blues.
Right.
So I would,
super cool. And Carrie, you know, I had the pleasure of meeting Carrie once at a show in New York City at a place appropriately called Chicago Blues, the blues club there.
Yeah, I played there.
Yeah, cool little club. And, you know, I met him on a break or after the show, and he was just a real gentleman and super, you know, super nice to me. I believe I asked him, you know, I was in my 20s, you know, I was a young kid, and I'm like, how do I sound like? How can I sound like you? How can I sound you? I believe he laughed like you just did, you know. Yeah, but he was super sweet, and anyway, I'm a big Carrie Bell fan.
Yeah, Carrie was an awesome harmonica player. He didn't quite get the notoriety that Junior and Cotton had, but he could hold his own.
Yeah,
with the best of them, man. He was really a wizard especially you catch him when he was in that zone. He was virtually untouchable.
Yeah, he's fantastic. A big guy. Yeah. He had big hands, and it was just the harmonica disappear in his hands. It was really awesome. Really awesome.
Yeah, Big Walter too. Big Walter was like that too.
Yeah, like what's going on back there? Some magic going on in there, you know. A little bit. I want to ask you a little bit about you know, your touring days with Willie, and then how you made the transition to Sons of the Blues. As you mentioned, these guys, Lurie Bell, literally Sons of the Blues, in this band with you, which you've made this band for decades now, right?
Right, since our first gig, the Sons of Blues was 1977 at the Berlin Jazz Festival.
Wow.
And
wow,
uh,
that's a great first gig.
that's the first time we got any money for playing was at the Berlin Jazz Festival. We were assembled by Jim O'Neill and Amy O'Neill, the founders and publishers of Living Blues magazine. They were approached by George Gruntz, the producer of the Berlin Jazz Festival, to create a blues showcase comprised of young African-American blues artists. So we were the answer to the question, are there any young Black artists playing blues? And so they assembled 15 of us, comprising 3 rhythm sections.
Oh, okay.
And at that time, I had been playing with Willie. But so Jim came and said, well, we got to get this band, you know, we got this opportunity. He said, well, bass be natural because me and Freddie are in Willie Dixon's band, Freddie's son.
Mm-hmm.
And Willie's drummer, Clifton James, his son, happened to play drums.
Okay.
So then he suggested, what about Lurie Bell for guitar? And I said, I didn't know Lurie very well, but I heard him, and Lurie was one of those prodigies, you know, he was only 19.
Wow. And
he played with the depth, somebody 40, 50 years older. He played with that kind of depth and maturity and skill. He was actually, in his prime, I would say, the best blues guitar player ever, hands down. So that's how we became the Sons of Blues. Okay. And there's a documentary, there's two parts of it on YouTube. One says Willie Dixon, I Am the Blues. Another one says Willie Dixon, Chicago's Young Blues Generation. You can see our very first performance. Wow. At the Berlin Jazz Festival, and we debuted this song that my friend who introduced me to Junior Wells, Lucius Barner, he wrote, and it came out on Alligator. That was our first Grammy nomination on Living Chicago Blues Volume 3, Tear Down the Berlin Wall. And we debuted that song, and Willie actually improvised a rap on top of it. And so you can watch that on YouTube.
I will watch that. I'll try to actually put a link to that. If I can find it on YouTube, I'll put a link in the show notes below this.
Yeah, or I can send you the links. But yeah, it's real. Both of them. They're really 2 documentaries highlighting the same event, but one is mostly performances, and the other one is performances and interviews.
Okay, great. Yeah, send me both of those links. I know a lot of people want to see this. I'd love to talk a little bit about, you brought up you were nominated for a Grammy. Let's talk about your recording career. I mean, you've recorded on hundreds of records. You've made, 15 records yourself, somewhere in that realm?
Somewhere in there, yeah. More or less, give or take a couple. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and you have your most recent album that was out, Roots and Branches, Tribute to Little Walter. I'd love to talk about that for a minute, because all hope, no matter where you are around the world, Japan, America, no matter where you go, if you find a harmonica player, they're going to want to talk about Little Walter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right. How did that Roots and Branches record come about? What made you want to do a Little Walter record?
Well, fairly recently, I guess 5, 6, maybe 7 years now, we, wife and I, met Little Walter's daughter, mm-hmm. Marion, named after her dad, Marion Walter Jacobs. Mm-hmm. And she had a foundation she was starting, and we became a part of her foundation. We're now really good friends. She calls me her big brother, and my wife her big sister. But over the years, you know, we would talk about her dad, and the opportunity to record came up, and she expressed interest in, you know, doing another record, a tribute to her father. And as my wife was really, she really was enthusiastic about that idea. So she encouraged me. At first, I kind of pushed back because I said, man, do you know how many tribute to Little Walter albums there are out there? And there are quite a few. I mean, justifiably so.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've never been a person just wanted to do what has been done before, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But eventually I said, okay, we're going to do this. And my band, as we start, we decided a list of tunes. And as we started rehearsing, some of those tunes started taking on a life of their own. In other words, we started doing different arrangements of these classic tunes.
Right.
And, you know, when you do Little Walter record, you know, Little Walter, of course, was quintessential genius. He was the Charlie Parker and Coltrane of blues harmonica. I still, when I listen, I'm still astounded by some of these solos. I'm like, what the hell was he thinking, you know, to come up with these such original, crazy solos, because it was so different than anything that had ever been played before.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got quite a few challenges. Number one, to do justice to the all-time greatest blues harmonica player that ever lived. Mm-hmm. And also, but not to just fall into the trap of just copying what he did note for note.
Right.
And also make it exciting and interesting. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty challenging, you know?
Yeah.
But my band, to their credit, they met the challenge, and they added a lot in terms of ideas. For example, when we did Juke, mm-hmm. I'm basically playing close note for note. I'm playing what Little Walter played, but we've got a different rhythm track going, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of the songs, they just started morphing into, you know, just more of a natural extension of what we do.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense. I don't know.
No, it does. Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I mean, I also think that what you did with My Babe was spectacular. I mean, all the different groove changes and stuff that were going on in there, you know, didn't sound like you took it somewhere new, and it was really fresh and refreshing and cool. I was just like, yeah. I mean, I just loved what you did with that track. Roller Coaster.
Thank you.
Also,
thank you. My Babe, I got to give credit where credit is due. Is my piano player's arrangement, that Sumito Ario. Mm-hmm. That was his concept. And but you know, I felt that we did adequately capture the essence of the Little Walter style and still manage to make it ours. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Without just doing you know, a rote reproduction.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I gotta say, I love the way the record sounds in generally. I mean, it's a great sounding record. You guys did a great job, but also just sonically speaking, there's a, it sounds really good.
Thank you.
You spoke of your pianist. He's bad, man. That guy.
Yeah, he is bad. He's one of the best, even though he's originally from Kyoto, Japan. He's also played with a lot of greats, including Robert Jr. Lockwood and Otis Rush, and several others. But I always say that he's the best of his generation in terms of playing traditional Chicago blues piano.
Right on. So I love also that you included Walter's daughter. She does these sort of spoken, she just talks like in the living room, having a conversation about her family. And I thought that was a really nice touch to have that sort of connection there.
That was like the icing on the cake. I mean, she did add that extra flavor
for sure.
To it. I mean, little Walter's daughter, she's a sweetheart.
Let me ask you about, so you've done so many sessions, not just for your solo stuff or with Sons of the Blues, but you've also recorded, with tons of other artists. One of my favorites, actually, Lou Rawls. I'm a big Lou Rawls fan. He's got one of the greatest of all time. In fact, your voice reminds me a little bit of Lou Rawls.
If I had $1 for every time I heard that.
Real crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, I got it kind of his talking voice. I don't have his singing voice nailed, but I've heard that for many years. And I'm a big Lou Rawls fan as well.
So when you go into the studio with these other artists and you're working on their project as a harp player, when you're going in for the session, what is your approach then? I'm always interested to hear, hey, this isn't my record, so I'm here to do something for you. I guess a guy of your stature, they bring you in because they want what Billy Branch does on a record. But do you ever go in and I guess is there a different approach for you, the way you go into a session when it's not your own?
Well, part of my how can I put this? Part of one of the skills that I learned was the ability to I have a good ear. And a lot of times I can anticipate weird chord changes before they happen, even if I've never heard them before. But a lot of, I think, my ability to adapt to different recording environments and sessions is the fact that I studied so hard when I was coming up. And when I say studied, was getting my head cut, going into those clubs and listening to the records. I play along with the records. I play along. But the experience, the countless experience I had on stage. And so part of, to me, what became important with the harmonic, because to me, it became just as important, and I enjoy as much comping or playing background as I do soloing. And a lot of guys can solo, but they don't know what to do when they're not soloing.
Right.
An example, I find myself melodies or horn lines or little rhythm patterns will come. So this became like an aid or a tool in my skill set to allow me to adeptly fit into whatever recording scenario that was. Became a skill just by listening. So long roundabout answer to your question is pretty much, for the most part, they just say play.
Mm-hmm.
They don't tell me. But on occasion, they'll say, hey, Billy, we want you to do this. I want you to play this lick in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some direction.
Right.
With Johnny Winter, I did 3 albums with Johnny Winter. He never told me a thing. He just said, go for it.
Do your thing.
That was
it. Right.
Yeah. But for me, it's, and I've done a considerable in the last decade or more, over the last 2 decades, a considerable collaborations with world music musicians. And I enjoy that. I'm a guy that if I hear a band and they sound good and I got a harp, I want to play.
Right on. Yes, absolutely.
I still enjoy that. And I might be in a hotel and it might be a lounge band and they might not be playing blues.
Right.
But I say, hey, I got a harp in that key. And that was part of my learning process. And to me, it keeps the ideas flowing. A lot of guys, they're really closed, but I've collaborated with probably 6 African artists, Sidi Touré, Vu Farka Touré, who was Ali Farka Touré's son, Susanna Baca, Afro-Peruvian treasure from Peru, Tenaro Win, Grammy Award winning, El Tri, Mexican Rolling Stone. I played with a lot of different world music, and I think it just enhances, it broadens your horizons.
Sure.
I mean, everyone's got their preferences, but for me, I love harmonica, and I feel that there's no limit. A lot of time, a lot of players, blues players, they stick strictly to blues. But when as Sons of Blues, we do a fair amount of R&B too. It wasn't unusual when I had guys like J.W. Williams and Carl Weathersby. We do the Temptations, we do some Motown, and the harp was in there.
Nice.
On my prior album, Blues Shock, do you have that?
I don't have Blues Shock personally.
Oh, you got to get Blues Shock, man. It's a great album.
I will.
Yeah.
I will get it.
Oh, man.
I'm going to order it. Maybe you'll sign it.
Yeah, it's got some great originals. But we did a cover. There's a song before your time called Function at the Junction. You ever heard that song?
Yeah, I think I have, actually.
Well, it was a big hit when I was a teenager, and it was by a guy named Shorty Long, and we covered that tune, and it's got a harp solo, and of course, it was a Motown style song. It wasn't no harp in it, but there's a harp in it, and it works.
And it works, absolutely. That's cool. Talk to me a little bit about the Ballad of George Floyd. I think that's a poignant, cutting to the bone song that you were a part of, and incredibly timely and important. And I just wanted to talk about it for a minute, if you don't mind. Tell me a little bit about how it came about.
Well, sure. Well, as you probably know, that was Dave Spector's brainchild. Dave Spector, well-known, respected guitarist here in Chicago as well. And Dave and I have been friends over the years, and he's part owner of the club, popular club up in Evanston, Illinois, Space.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
And we play there periodically. But anyway, Dave, we were talking, and he said, "Man, I got this great this song I wrote called Ballad of George Floyd." I said, "Well, let me check it out." And he had like a scratch version, and he said, "Hey, you want to be a part of it?" I said, "Yeah."
Right on.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because as you said, it spoke to the time and the moment. And, you know, right now, as you well know, we're undergoing this period in history with so much political and social upheaval right now. We're experiencing a change right now.
Mm-hmm.
History will look back, and I don't know how it will view this moment, but it's definitely a pivotal moment in the history of this country. And I relate to that a lot. I'm very politically I wouldn't say active, but I'm very politically tuned in. Of course, bachelor's political science, but my wife and I are like political junkies. You know,
Right.
and I'm very sensitive to social justice issues, and this Black Lives Matter movement, which is one of the dynamics that is actively happening right now. It's, it really resonates with me. And because what we saw with George Floyd as African Americans, we realized that could have been us.
Mm-hmm.
That we know that. I've had numerous encounters with the police that were unprovoked and were just wrong. I mean, I'm innocently going to my gig at the Kingston Mines, and the same detective in a plain unmarked car pulls me over twice in the period of 20 minutes and then locks me up. I'm in jail. Supposedly I stole a tire, and then supposedly I stole a radio. Next thing I know, I'm in handcuffs, slammed against the car.
Mm-hmm.
Handcuffs so tight, my wrists are almost bleeding, and I'm in jail. And I'm just trying to go to my gig.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a reality that African Americans have been acutely aware. It is a reality that we've lived in our entire existence, that white America is just now finally beginning to recognize.
Mm-hmm.
And even so, now it's not fully so. So long story short, yeah, I could relate to that song.
Yeah. Right.
And I was very happy and enthusiastic about having the opportunity to collaborate with Dave on it. I thought it was very poignantly stated, the lyrics, the melody. It's got that haunting vibe. And I think it's a beautiful song, and it speaks to the moment.
Yes, it does. We need more of those songs in the world, especially at this time.
Yeah.
You know, you've traveled the world as a player. You know, you've played at some of the greatest blues and jazz festivals on this planet, Montreux. I mean, the list goes on and on. But you also travel the world as an educator with your Blues in the Schools program. And I would love to hear more about that program, because I think people should know about what you do and how you, I mean, it's not just, you're not just teaching folks how to play the harmonica. There seems to be like a historical angle there as well, where the blues come from, why the blues I'm guessing why the blues came to be at all. Would you mind talking a little bit about the Blues in the Schools program?
Sure, I'll try to condense it, because there's so much. I'm one of the pioneers. I started teaching blues 1978, shortly, almost not too long after I started playing professionally. And I started out in an organization through the Illinois Arts Council, a grant. And then there was another program that was a residency.
Okay.
And it would be a 4-week residency, and I teach youngsters the history with a partner. and how to compose songs and learn standards and then they would ultimately, I teach them harmonica. My partner would teach them guitar or maybe piano.
Right.
And they would perform. And I've done this in so many capacities. I've done it, sometimes it's performances, and then I'll invite some of the kids on stage. Sometimes I'm in a situation in an auditorium where there's 750 children with harmonicas in the audience, and I'm teaching them.
Wow.
Indianola, Mississippi, at the opening of the B.B. King Museum, after 2 tours of 2-week tours, I had 1,500 kids with harmonicas marching to the ribbon ceremony, cutting ceremony of the B.B. King Museum, playing the harmonicas while they're marching there. As recently as 3 years ago, I'm in the Andes Mountains of Ecuador, teaching youngsters in Spanish, and in some instances in the Afro-Ecuadorian community. I was in a place called Esmeralda, Ecuador, where I taught the police force. In a group of 500, the police force came in and they learned blues.
Wow, that's amazing.
I've done this in Italy. I've done it in Canada, and all over the world.
It's amazing.
And I have stories that would bring tears to your eyes of how not only did this enrich the children's lives musically, but it became life-changing situations. Young lady was suicidal. She became mentored by my late bass player, Nick Charles, and she became a model student, went on to Yale, and came back and addressed the students after she graduated in Seattle. I just numerous stories. I had in Wisconsin, I had a month-long residency, and at the end, they let the students have a little party and a testimonial. And the coordinator said, "Those 2 boys there, you know, you had the 2 worst kids in the school." I said, "But they were the only ones that had perfect attendance." She said, "Well, that one burned down the principal's office last year, and that one tried to kill his mother. But they became model students." So the music and the impact cannot be,
underestimated.
Cannot be overstated. Yeah.
Right. You're a true humanitarian. I mean, we hear this phrase or term a lot, ambassador of the blues or whatever, but you are that guy.
Well, I maybe so. Yeah. I mean, I feel the blues has been so marginalized and relegated to almost underground status. Whenever I and part of this I got from Willie Dixon, because Willie Dixon ate, slept, spoke the blues all the time. He was always talking about the political and social ramifications of the blues, and part of my association with him, I think he instilled that in me, because I find myself maybe talking to the person I'm sitting next to on an airplane that doesn't know that much about the blues, and we strike up a conversation, and the next thing I know, I'm giving them a little crash course in blues history, you know. And it's important because, as you know, the blues is the roots of America's music, and a lot of people are not aware of it.
It's amazing. That's absolutely true. I mean, we wouldn't have rock and roll, and we wouldn't have jazz, and these are American things, and we wouldn't have them.
I mean, no, we would not. There would be no Rolling Stones, no Led Zeppelin, no Creedence, none of it. Gone. That's right. That's
right. Well, so what's next for Billy Branch? What's in your future? I mean, you know, all things considered, and we're dealing with a pandemic here at the moment, but, you know, God willing, we'll be back to some normalcy, you know, hopefully this year.
Yeah.
But,
well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just curious what's on the docket for you, man?
To get in the studio, get a new album out as soon as possible. Finish writing some of these tunes I'm working on. Get my band. I got a really top-notch band right now, and that's the band you heard on Roots and Branches. That is my band.
Yeah, right
and, on. Yeah, we got a combination of the younger cats, and me and Ario. I'm the older guy, and Ario's the almost older guy. He's becoming old too. but that's on it, and try to make some more headways, gain some more visibility, because I haven't toured quite as much. I haven't been as visible on the festival circuit as much as I feel that I need to be and deserve to be, and we're going to make more of a concerted effort to be more visible, more present, you know.
Yeah, fantastic. I look forward to seeing you out on the road again, and I would love to see you live. So do you play in Chicago still much? Do you hit? We did. We not like I used to. There was a time back in the day we'd be working 7 nights a week. Wow. in town. You know, Chicago is a unique city musically in that if you choose to, you can actually pay all your bills just working in town, you know, because it's got that kind of, club set up. But I've shied away from being overexposed and too much in the club. For example, you got Kingston Mines and Blues on Halsted. They're directly across the street from each other. So some guys you'll see every Wednesday at Blues on Halsted, and then Thursday at Kingston Mines, and then you know, you can kind of oversaturate yourself. But but we do play, not as much, you know, which kind of cherry picking our gigs, but we play at Rose's sometimes, Space, as I mentioned, and we were playing Kingston Mines. I don't think we'll be playing there anymore. I don't even know if they're going to reopen. That's a shame. That's a vibey little club.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Yeah, but no, it is. The Kingston Mines, it kept a lot of musicians employed. You got 365 days a year, 2 bands every night.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's great. Well, I'm glad to hear that sounds like the blues is, pandemic aside, that the blues is still alive in Chicago. You know, I don't know there's always a heyday, right? But things will wane. But Chicago's important to music, and it needs to thrive with blues music. So I'm glad to hear that it's still happening, and you know.
Yeah, it's I consider it Chicago's greatest cultural resource, and it's I'm among quite a group of folks that feels that it needs to be promoted as such on a much higher basis, you know.
I agree with you.
Because people come, you know, Chicago Blues, even throughout the year, people come from all over the world to hear Chicago Blues. But when Blues Fest come, have you ever come to Chicago Blues Fest?
Yeah, you know what? I've been in town when it was going on, but I never was able to get to go actually. But I've seen lots of videos,
oh man,
a lot of footage of it. I've seen you on stage at the Blues Fest multiple times, you know, via video.
Oh, nothing like it. Nothing like it.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, maybe next year when you're headlining,
hopefully.
I'll be there. I'm going to call you though. I'm going to say, hey, can I stand backstage and watch you play?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
work on getting your bags.
yeah, get a little backstage pass for the
Yeah.
Harpslinger guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Billy, man, this is it's been a rare honor and a treat, a privilege, all of those things to have a conversation with you. I'm so grateful that you took time and had the patience to sit through. We've had some troubles with the internet, but it didn't stop us. So thanks for being a sport, man, and as I always say, I hope we can do this again. This was fantastic.
Yeah, well, thank you. My pleasure. Keep doing what you're doing. It's always good to get the word out, you know.
Yeah.
You can never, there can never be too many harmonica players.
No, that's right. That's right. You know, there's probably a joke in there somewhere, but
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, man, and please stay in touch. I'll do the same, and again, we must do this again sometime. Yeah. Speaking of, before I let you go, where can I know? Do you still teach? You do teach lessons online and whatever.
I
right?
do. I do. I haven't. You know, I need to be more proactive in marketing, but I do teach on, and you can contact me either through Facebook or through my website, branch.com, if you're interested. I do private lessons. Currently, I'm my one regular student is a fireman in Hungary.
Oh, wow. The wonders of the internet. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, and if people want to buy Billy Branch merchandise and stuff, they can pick that up on your website as well, I'd imagine, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. BillyBranch.com.
BillyBranch.com. Well, there it is, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into the Harpslinger Podcast. The king right here, Mr. Billy Branch. Thank you, sir. We'll catch you next time.
Great talking with you. All right. Likewise.